We are live at the Richard Nixon Presidential Library in Yorba Linda, California. Of course, President Nixon was a complex figure. He had many great successes, especially on foreign policy. But any discussion of President Nixon obviously has to include his downfall from the Watergate scandal that evolved from concern over leaks. And that is highly relevant and a highly relevant issue right now. Tonight, Chief Washington Correspondent James Rosen, our resident historian, looks at what lessons the Trump administration might learn from how the Nixon administration dealt with the leaks problem.
It was June 13, 1971, and President Nixon's #2 man at the National Security Council, General Alexander Haig, was briefing the commander-in-chief on the first installment in the New York Times of the Pentagon Papers, 7,000 pages of classified documents tracing America's involvement in Vietnam.
This is a devastating security breach of the greatest magnitude of anything I've ever seen.
2 years earlier, when the Times had exposed the secret bombing of Cambodia, Haig and his boss, Henry Kissinger, had ordered wiretaps on 12 NSC staffers.
I just wish that we operated without the bureaucracy. We do.
All the good things that are being done without.
We do.
Those good things included the opening to China and nuclear accords with the Soviet Union, all achieved by cutting out key officials at State, the Pentagon, and CIA. Decades later, Kissinger remained bitter about leakers from within the government.
My own view is that if you're in a high government position, or in any government position, and if you disagree with the government, you ought to resign.
Instead, the month after the Pentagon Papers, the Times divulged the U.S. negotiating posture in the SALT nuclear talks. And in December '71, syndicated columnist Jack Anderson published top-secret minutes from NSC meetings held just days earlier, scoops that earned a Pulitzer Prize. In response, the Nixon White House formed a special unit known as the Plumbers, which burglarized the Beverly Hills offices of Dr. Lewis Fielding, the psychiatrist who was then treating Pentagon Papers leaker Daniel Ellsberg. A new archival study, Nixon's Back Channel to Moscow, traces Nixon's fall from power in Watergate to the establishment of the plumber.
It started off in terms of having legitimate national security concerns, but it quickly descended within about a year of the plumber's creation into political espionage, exceeding executive authority and going into the illegal.
Yet the plumbers also uncovered the most serious offense of all, a Pentagon spy ring that secretly diverted 5,000 classified documents from Kissinger's NSC into the hands of Admiral Thomas Moorer, then chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
It involved some admirals who reported to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs and an enlisted man, Yeoman Charles Radford, who was kind of a body man for Kissinger and Al Haig on some trips, and stole documents from the NSC offices, even from Kissinger and Haig's briefcase.
For President Trump, the Nixon-Kissinger experience offers less a roadmap for dealing with leakers than a warning from history that while secrecy in the conduct of foreign policy can produce great accomplishments, it invariably triggers an adverse institutional response, and the determination to identify those leakers can be taken too far. Brett?
James, I don't think many Americans realize that there was a Pentagon spy ring involving the chairman of the Joint Chiefs targeting President Nixon and Henry Kissinger. Has much been written about that? It's called the Moorer-Radford affair, Brett. It surfaced briefly in 1974 and was quickly overshadowed by Watergate. Radford was the young Navy yeoman Charles Radford, a stenographer who spent 13 months in wartime rifling Kissinger's briefcase, going through burn bags and so on, and thereby kept the Joint Chiefs chairman, Admiral Thomas Moorer, in the loop on the Nixon-Kissinger back channels. In 2000, I became the first researcher to listen to the declassified tapes of President Nixon being informed about all of this. He wanted to prosecute Moorer, but Attorney General John Mitchell talked him out of it. This is an incredible Cold War episode. It has never been treated at full book length, which it deserves. That's really interesting. And there's a unique tie, quickly, directly from President Nixon to President Trump. Yes, and it goes beyond the campaign rhetoric of law and order and the silent majority. President-elect Trump had told folks that he planned to display in the Oval Office a letter he received from ex-President Nixon in 1987 congratulating him for a recent appearance on the Phil Donahue show. Mr. Nixon related the opinion of Mrs. Nixon that if Mr. Trump would ever decide to run for public office, you'll be a winner. Accent and all. We'll check if that gets hung in the Oval Office. James, as always, thank you. Thank you.